And what I was teaching myself and them was iteration. Like, don't stop with whatever it gives you. Keep going further, make it more fun, make it more creative. And like, that's the sort of skill we all need to be able to have, is just keep going and just be more curious and just get more creative. And if you can find a fun way into that, you'll do it more. And if you do it more, you'll get better at it.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted online platform for the best keynote speakers in the world. And I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. Hey everyone, thanks for dropping by. Can we talk just for a minute, just you and me? Like adults. I think you can handle it. And look, there's no way around it, so I'm just going to come out and say it. Hopefully you're sitting down. AI is here to stay. Woo! Oh, I feel a lot better now. Got that off my chest. That's right, AI is here to stay, and I hope I'm not saying anything too earth-shattering. I think we're all at the same place right now. And while there are those that fear the ultimate negative outcomes of AI, I'm here to say that after chatting with my guest today, the great Nick Borelli, AI and event planning expert, that the best outcome for event professionals is that you can absolutely remain in the driver's seat. And the ride will render great fun, opportunity, and creativity that has never been seen before. According to Nick, once you learn about the basics of AI, like prompt engineering and prompt architecture, you can harness its power and navigate to levels of success not yet achieved, and at twice the speed of sound. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little, but getting solutions is fast. And the cool thing is, as Nick says, you don't have to learn coding. It's a natural language, and it's here to do the heavy lifting for you. And it isn't all robotics. It still can't replicate empathy and emotion, so you get to put the authentic human spin on it that makes the final outcome unique and personal. You're definitely going to learn a lot from this episode. In my conversation with Nick, he shares some incredible tips on leveraging AI for smarter event management, and most importantly, he shares some great resources for learning. Nick also drills down into the impossible made possible. We also talk about how crucial data is for understanding attendee experiences and how AI can help personalize and improve every aspect of your event. Imagine sensors that gather insights without all those annoying surveys, and AI tools that can suggest personalized matches and experiences for your attendees. Bottom line is that AI won't replace our creativity, but it will surely optimize the way we deliver unforgettable experiences. So let's get started with my new best buddy and my go-to for everything AI, Nick Borelli. The reason I have you here on the program is that, as you know, and as you listen to, I had JT Long on the show, and she was talking about putting together a white paper, and she's talking about this guy, Nick Borelli, and you have to have him on the show. He's the one who taught me everything about AI. I kept on referring to her as a burgeoning expert, and she was learning. We're all learning.
Yeah. So, people who are far into this aren't even that far, as far as users and as far as domain experts leveraging it. It really, like, no one's that far ahead. I would be intimidated by someone who uses it every day. You could be using it every day in a matter of weeks.
Right. It's a real interesting process because I think all of us, I'm experiencing it with my work where I can use AI, where I can help if I'm writing something, getting a better way of saying things or getting just some research. When I researched you, I went on also on to ChatGPT to see what they had to say about you, as well as LinkedIn and other things. I think I want to focus a lot on AI here today. As you said, everyone's sort of starting to dip their toes in it. Some people use it. Some people every day. That's part of their business model now. But I would say a majority are exploring it now. So why is it important
for event organizers to adopt AI at this point?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons. One, I've been in the events world since I was a teenager, and there's been an excuse that is 100% valid to really nearly every problem, which is to say, not enough time and not enough resources. I mean, I don't know any organizer who's got an abundance of either of those things. Asked to know more things, more domains, same budget, maybe less. That's the world. So in that, any advantage you have, any horsepower you can get, any assistance you can get is a lifeline. I mean, if you look at the most stressful jobs, why are event people constantly in that? It's because you're asked to do more than you've got. So here comes a technology that says you don't have to really know how to use the technology. You don't have to learn coding. You don't have to, figure that it's natural language, and it's here to do lifting for you. I mean, I think it's the oxygen we need as we've been crashing. So I think that's the main reason. And the other reason is everybody else is going to be using it. So if you aren't, you're going to be behind. And there's also going to be people who are going to try to use AI exclusively to go twice as fast and everything. And they're going to be able to. They're not going to get twice as far, but there's going to be a lot of competition that's got as far as you have ever been able to get in half the time, which means if that's all we're using it for, there's going to be half as many of us. So that's a challenge. And on the other side, if we're not using it, we're going to be the half that's not around. So you got to use it. And then you also have to be able to know how to use it in a way that is not just about proficiency and speed, but it's about excellence, and it's about going twice as far.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who feel like, hey, I better jump on this train pretty quickly because it has left the station and I need to catch up to everyone. I mean, I think there's a little anxiety of feeling like, yes, that competitor knows it better than me, and therefore it's going to be a challenge. Is that a realistic observation?
It's a real fear that people have, for sure. I mean, without question. How accurate that is, I don't know. I really don't think a competitor is going to be able to, in 2 weeks, whatever acumen that they've gained in utilizing AI, you can get in 2 weeks. You can ask AI, I got 2 weeks to get good at you. I got 20 minutes a day. Give me a curriculum on like how I can do that, and you'll be caught up to that person. And then it's back to, once you get into that saddle, it's back to your domain expertise and passion against theirs, which is a fair fight. So, I think without the AI, it's not a fair fight. But once you, find a way to have it teach you how to be good with it, then you've got the horsepower to do the things you've always wanted to do. And maybe the person you're competing with is good at AI, where they're at, but they're not necessarily the best at what you do. And then, as it should be, you'll be ahead of them. And that's the goal, right? The goal is to have the people who have the most amount of passion, the most domain expertise, the most creativity. They should be on top, and it shouldn't be the AI putting them on top. And it's not, frankly, going to be. It's going to be table stakes. It's going to be like, everyone knows how to use email and Word and Excel. It's pretty much the same. It's going to be, just a utility of what you're used to. That said, how you use it and your creativity on how you use it is, there's not just a learning curve there, but there's also an opportunity for people to go really far with it, or just have it do your email slightly faster, which isn't that exciting.
So it is all about, at least initially, I'm hearing people talk about streamlining, getting more hours in the day, taking care of sort of the mundane stuff. Talk to me a little bit about how AI can streamline event operations beyond scheduling and logistics.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I tell everybody, once they learn a little bit about, even like the research that you did, is no one shows up to meetings anymore with nothing. And you're going to show up to meetings with some ideas. You're going to show up with some meetings with some pretty well thought out ideas. You're meeting your F&B person to plan out the menu, write a BEO. All right, well, you're going to ask maybe ChatGPT, I want you to write a menu for me. It's for a 3-day conference. It's for people of this economic echelon. It's in Atlanta, so I want regional food. I want you to incorporate our mission, vision, and values, which are the following. Cut, paste. I want you to incorporate the theme of it. Paste. Just dump all of the things that you'd ever want in there, and it'll craft you a draft that's pretty dang good. And then you iterate on that a few more times and say, yeah, less of this, more of that. Then you go to that meeting with that in mind and say, I want to start here. I don't want to start with a blank page. I don't want to start at 0. I want to start, we're going at 60 miles an hour right as we start this meeting. And if everyone adopts those kinds of things for every one of your internal meetings or your external meetings or your vendor meetings, and you have these ideas, I'm not saying, hand it to your caterer and say, make this. I say, what does this make you think? Where would you go from here? What are some tweaks that you would have that would make this more interesting or more personal or more human? If you do that, if we do that with everything we're doing just goes up another level, and that's what I'm saying, not just have it crank out a menu, give it to your caterer and say, make this. Everyone can do that. I mean, it's really cool when you see it, but you realize, wait a minute, someone else could have done that too. Then you're going to be at the new, low level, which is higher than where we're at right now, frankly. But it's going to raise the bar for all things. So, I mean, operations, it ends up being like more research, more thoroughness, and less time wasted on where to start and having those epiphanies.
That's great. So a lot of it is getting an understanding now of how to effectively use AI, still bring in your creativity. So you're sort of saying AI is not going to level the playing field. It's up to the individuals.
Yeah, so it's going to level the low bar and it's going to raise it. So people without any kind of event experience and people with event experience are going to be able to ask similar questions and get similar responses. The people with more domain expertise are going to have better questions. They're going to get a little bit further. But ultimately, whatever it yields out, everyone's going to have access to. It can scrape the best 3 competitors of you and pull together a program that's a best of, let's say, of everything of what has been. And that's going to be, pretty great, but it's still going to be something anybody can do. Going where no one's gone before, being creative, taking risks, taking big swings. It's not going to be a nice to have. It's going to be a need to have, because whatever the right answer is, whatever has been done but optimized, that's available to everyone, fairly democratized. So I think there's going to be a couple years of people are going to see what they can get away with, just the cut and paste. So like right now, if I'm planning an event over the next couple of years, realize there's going to be a glut of the same. This is a real leadership opportunity for you to lean into the creative, because what we're going to see is competent, uncreative solutions at scale.
Right. So we're going to get, by definition, some mediocre design.
Mediocre, thoroughly, not wrong, not as bad as such. But in all arenas, especially in arenas of content, you're going to see high average everywhere. And the only thing that is going to break that is going to be risks. And the challenge is event people are risk averse. So while I'm saying this is going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you, unless you have something that is going to shock people out of what they expect to see, like if you have a networking event and your networking event is, we're going to go to a ballroom somewhere, there's going to be food and drinks, and you're just going to go network. Just realize that that's going to be ChatGPT would also come up with that. Like that's literally every networking event. It's not going to be memorable. You're not competitive. You have to be able to have a hook. And the other thing is that some level of humanity too, like, be vulnerable, be authentic. Those things AI doesn't have either. So just realize that nature abhors a vacuum. And when everything is devoid of those things, people are going to have cravings, that just aren't going to be met. They're not going to be met because you're not going to see some kind of like something slightly weird or unique, or you need to lean into that stuff because the AI is not going to generate that. It's going to generate a sort of average.
And can you talk to AI? I mean, I learned the term prompt engineering from JT, which came from you, which I'm sure is a familiar term.
That's a real word. Yeah.
Yeah, real word. So is there a way to get ChatGPT to give you something that no one has thought of, or you haven't thought of, or to extrapolate off of something that you get from ChatGPT?
Technically, yes, you can keep iterating. I mean, some of the prompts that I frequently do are, these are, veterans in this industry. They need to see something that they haven't always seen, because most of the time I get things and they're sort of banal. So I keep pushing it and say, what would be outside of the box? What would be unexpected? And having those words. But I ultimately think it ends up being the leaps. So for me, I don't have it come up with the creative answers. What I do is I have it give me all of the unseen challenges. So an example would be, I'll say, I want to create a networking event that is accessible for neurodivergent attendees, people of the Muslim faith, people who use a wheelchair, people who are new to an industry, and CEO. Please give me all of the challenges that those people would have in a 2-hour networking experience. And then it gives you all of them. And then you say, great. find the ones that are the common overlaps between those, and give me a top 5 biggest challenges that the traditional networking event doesn't accomplish. Okay, it does that. Now I have a sort of shot list to say these 5 areas are just overlooked. They're never accomplished. And that's the reverse of the sort of average. Now I know the challenges in average, and that's where I spend my time coming up with creative problem solving. If I create a networking event that has clear objectives and clear objective of every interaction for the neurodivergent, that has everyone sitting at the same level in order to even the playing field for people who use wheelchairs, who matches people based on their seniority in order to make sure that the C-suite doesn't waste their time, also has a prompt to have a window into the conversation for people who are new to an industry. If I do all that, do I have something new? That's something that AI couldn't have created? Probably. But I didn't have AI do the work for me. I had it uncover what is to be done. And it just takes a different strategy outlook for that. But in a roundabout way, it can do it, but it still absolutely needs the human stuff. Like that's everything I just said is guided by empathy, and it's guided by human creativity. So that's the sort of hand in hand when I think about AI of, okay, what's the work? It's a constant baton pass off. The human work, now power it by AI. And now that I'm exposed by that, how does that give me more empathy, creativity, et cetera, and back and forth and back and forth. And there's room for both, but there is domains that are sort of separate that, you want to play into.
So it's allowing us the time to be more curious. We don't have to devote so much time to it now. So we're constantly trying to enhance the attendee experience, attendee engagement during events. In what ways would AI be able to facilitate that? We have the aspect of streamlining in time. Now, how do we actually apply that to have a greater experience for our attendees?
Yeah, I mean, even from the idea of accessibility, there's AI applications that allow you to instantly translate everything that's being said. I was just at an event in Detroit, and that was the case. You scan a QR code in whatever language you are, put your headphones in, and it translates whatever that speaker is saying there. So, I mean, this is a whole new group of people who might not have been able to actually add to our community. And, now they can instantaneously. Now they're with it, and they're sitting there with us, and they're adding to the discussion. That's an opportunity for that. The other thing is data analysis allows us to look at the behaviors of attendees and determine what they actually like and what they don't like, where they spend their time. I mean, so my day job with Zenus, one of the things we look at is presentations, and I can see minute by minute engagement. I can see the reactions of people. So I can see when the CEO says, this, he loses everybody. And then when he says that, they're actually interested in the dental plan. Turns out that's a big deal. So knowing that kind of stuff, for different types of events is vitally important, down to segments of the audience of saying, when you were talking about this, you lost the attention of everybody over 40.
AI is going to determine now how old we look, which is great.
It does already. Yeah.
Just so that people are keeping track here, we talked a little bit before we went on about facial analysis data, and that's what you're really talking about here. And I used the term facial recognition, and you corrected me and said, well, it's really more facial analysis data. Why don't you tell, you're talking about nuanced. It now. Yeah, nuance. So tell me a little bit more about that nuance so that everyone understands.
So there's facial recognition, which is a branch of technology that is out and has lots of event applications. Usually it's used in security and check-ins, right? So you could do registration, and during registration, it could capture your face. And when you walk through a line, it would see your face and just let you in. And that's a convenience, and that's a security protocol. And that's maybe interesting to the degree that Madison Square Garden as a venue has a catalog of faces that it's scraped from social media of any lawyer who is an active lawsuit with them and doesn't allow them in their venue. I mean, that's a choice. That's one way you can use technology. So that's the facial recognition. The challenge of facial recognition, there's a couple of them. The major one is that it collects information about you, and it can be cross-referenced with any other database that has your biometric information in it, i.e. social media. So I can say, let's, pay attention to data of just people who also have been to these types of rallies or are of this religion or whatever. We can do that, that's possible. So facial recognition, because it records faces and it stores personal identifiable information, It's got pluses and minuses. Facial analysis looks at objects that it deems that is a face, but it doesn't know, it's not recording video or photos. It just recognizes, oh, this is an object. This is a over here, not a face. This is one of the faces, hundreds of them at once. And then once it knows that, it creates a grid and it measures what's happening here 5 times per second. And when it does that, based on modeling of faces that it's done in a bank of AI modeling, it can determine like sentiment, for instance, like if someone's giving a positive sentiment, it could be any one of the areas that is positive sentiment. So we know that happened at this marker, at this period of time, et cetera. So the upshot is we can put it in a trade show booth and I could tell you your trade show booth had this many impressions. Of those impressions, it's 75% of them had a dwell rate of over a minute. And of those people, this many of them had a positive sentiment associated with that. That's all the things top of the funnel that you get in digital, but you don't get in live events. If you're B2B, you get leads generated at your area, maybe. In B2C, you don't get that at all. You get nothing. You just sort of, the event's supposed to be good on there. So we kind of quantify the investment. And for sessions, I see minute by minute, someone tells a joke and you see the joke. And then there's all these really interesting cases. Like we had this event with Bill and Hillary Clinton in January. There were segments of the audience that no matter what happened, jokes were told, gasps were happening, but a segment never changed. And my hypothesis is they came in with such weighted expectations of who those people were and their own personal politics that they were just like, no matter what happened, they were just stone faced. And that's interesting, you know, in and of itself, right? So we get all this data and it just proves it. First off, it helps us tell the story of attendees. What did they experience? How did they were in a long line? We get dwell rate. Okay, that's interesting. But they didn't have a bad time in that long line because there was stuff happening. So maybe the long line's okay. Like it gives us a little bit more of the depth of everything that's happening in the event. And that's something that people can't do. AI's processing power, it provides us that kind of, you know, way, and we can just ask questions of the data.
You talk about how well to know attendees. I'm sure in the next few years, things are really going to change. AI is going to give you feedback in real time. Tell me about what changes you see in the next few years.
Well, 2 big ones. I mean, the first one is the acceleration of matchmaking in live events. So right now we show up to an event and the engine that runs ROI, in my opinion, is luck. I hope you go to the sessions you're supposed to. I hope you meet the people you're supposed to, because the designs are based on that luck being the engine, so that it's a shotgun design approach. We got everything here. You know, I don't know if you've been to IMAX. IMAX has everything. Like it's right. Like there's this and there's that, and it's overwhelming. I missed more than I could ever get to do, right? And the expense of that, and the cost of having something for everybody, assuming that because you don't know them all that well, it makes things very challenging. You can't deploy, like if they decided they want to do another IMAX, they don't have, it's just too much. But you could have a smaller version just for these people. So if we knew when we came to an event, we looked at our app and we said, oh, okay, based on what I've done in the past and the things that I've ranked high and the things I like and the people that I like and the brands that I like in the sessions, these are the 5 people I should meet. These are the 5 sessions I should go to. These are the 5 sponsors I should engage with. My ROI just went up 5x, and it was a guarantee. The best events where I'm like, I met somebody that was really great, it's going to change my business. And I flew out somewhere and I got hotels for 5 nights, one person. And that's acceptable now because that person could be so valuable, and that's, you wouldn't do that in a Zoom. So it's still the best we got. If you increase all of that stuff and make it a guarantee that you're definitely going to meet the best people, you're definitely going to be the best sessions, then you're going to go to more events and you're going to do them easily. And so to me, the biggest opportunity for AI is learning from us as attendees, and then being able to deliver personalized as they define success in their event. It will just deliver it to them in their way. You know, like you don't have to make everything for everybody. It will be this sort of modularly designed experience that will happen based on their preferences. So that, and then lots of sensors, you know, at events to understand like the actual impact that is, you don't need surveys at a certain point. You'll just be able to understand, you know, surveys are 2% of the people that find them. I find the people that fill them out are probably outliers anyway, that have extra time.
So it seems like people are going to really need some education here. You know, people, as I said, are dabbling with AI. I think also if they have someone with a tech background, that's they're going to be more inclined to move towards it. There's a little fear always as technology increases. What kind of education, or, people are listening to this and probably hearing things they haven't heard before. What type of education do you recommend to get more familiar with AI?
I'll get this out of the bat right away. I have a 5-week course with PCMA.
There we go.
Yeah, I say, got to get the plug in, right?
No, definitely. I want everyone to hear it. Tell me all about this 5-week course.
Yeah, so it's very specialized for people who organize and design events. So I'll give you there's a bunch of resources that are broad AI for sure, that are really great. First off, like LinkedIn and Google have a bunch of really broad AI courses that are free and definitely great. They're really good on the interface and like how to get the most out of the interface, which I think is fairly easy to figure out. But those are out there and they're pretty good. The one I have is designed to go through the phases of events, from strategy, planning, marketing, engagement of attendees, and then post-event analytics. And then it's a bunch of different AI platforms and where they fit into each one of those categories, only with event examples. So that's one element. I would say almost all of your event conferences now have AI. Geez, it feels like, because I think I'm at them all.
Yeah, I was just talking to Tahira and Dean, and she said basically at IMAX Frankfurt, that was where all the attendees went. Everyone knows they have to be there. It puts
butts in seats for sure. I mean, now I'm doing ones where I just did one for EduCon where I did, I did 11 presentations, which is admittedly overachieving. But one of the ones I did was on like DEI and AI, because I'm now to the point of like AI is the tactics, it's the workhorse, but it's not really, just good at AI. It's how do we use AI in all the other things that we do? So I'm working on one for like sustainability and well-being as well. If we've got these big problems, we need to take a bite out of them with something. And this is probably the best ammunition we've had. So, I mean, all the associations I think are doing a pretty good job of jumping in on this kind of stuff. PCMA actually developed its own AI platform, which is really a big swing for an association. It's called Spark. And everything with that is it lowers the bar even further as far as barriers to entry. Instead of being good at prompt engineering, like you mentioned, you just have to answer like 6 questions and it'll make an agenda, 6 questions, and it'll create a draft of a legal document. And there's like 40 different utilities like that. That's called prompt architecture. So on top of OpenAI, which is the thing that, powers ChatGPT, on top of it is all these conventions of events, like I said, agendas and what have you. And it just makes it so literally you just have to answer like, what kind of event is it? How many people? What's your theme? And it takes you through a guided journey, and then you can't help but get good answers.
Can ChatGPT create a prompt architecture for something if you ask the right questions? I mean, that would seem something that would be worthwhile. Interesting.
Yep. I mean, that's another element too. So there's an element of ChatGPT called GPTs, which are apps built in ChatGPT that go on top of ChatGPT as this architecture. So you can design your own sort of widgets that do that stuff for you. So yeah, I mean, the no code app design, I mean, the Claude 3.5, which came out recently, is really good. You can take a PDF and turn it into an app. Like it's Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Like I've seen like gamification apps where people have described it in audio because Claude will take in audio. You just talk out loud with the app that you wish existed and it will code it in real time and it will develop a fairly rudimentary but working app. And you can QA in it too. So you can iterate in the app itself and you can actually make it better. Oh, I don't like when you did this, change the color of that. And it'll make new versions of the app in real time with no code. So, I mean, eventually exposure to what it can do is right now where we're at. I'm not going to tell people you have to be great at any of this stuff because I don't even know what that means, because it depends on how great just means what you need it to do. What you need to learn is what it can do. And like one of the things that I learned that it can do that is a sort of cheat code to this is at the end of a prompt, I'll say, is there anything else that you need in order to get a better response from me? So thinking along those lines, like you can ask it what you didn't do well. You can ask, I need a really great prompt, or I'm, doing that. And there's lots of other tricks and secrets of this kind of stuff, but you just stumble upon most of this stuff organically just by doing it. And I find that like the same way that JT in her interview with you said that she did it because she was finding a birthday present, find it for fun stuff. Like I was on a road trip with my kids and we were making up monsters. They were describing it. It has 3 tails and 6 eyes. They were describing it to me, and I was putting it into DALL-E, which is like this image generator, and I was showing them the image. And then I was saying, what else would you change with this? Would you put it here? And what I was teaching myself and them was iteration. Like, don't stop with whatever it gives you. Keep going further, make it more fun, make it more creative. And like, that's the sort of skill we all need to be able to have, is just keep going and just be more curious and just get more creative. And if you can find a fun way into that, you'll do it more. And if you do it more, you'll get better at it.
I think that's what it's all about, is to have fun and have curiosity also about the AI process.
Totally.
And that is asking questions, asking AI to help you with the prompt questions. And a word that keeps on coming up is iterations, is that you can always go back and fine tune it and find out more. I like the idea that if you don't know something, or you don't, it almost seems like that's a very efficient way to use AI, by asking, what kind of questions would I want to ask if this is what my end result is? And they'll give you questions that maybe you haven't even thought of, which is great.
Which it might inspire you to come up with other questions you wouldn't have thought of unless you saw their questions. And this is why I'm thinking it's more about the relationship you have with it. Like, you're on a journey with it. It's your assistant. But if you ask it questions that, spark ideas off of you, then you can say that. I mean, I've even said, I had this idea. Tell me why. Here's the idea. Tell me why I'm wrong. And then it will try to poke holes in it. I've had ones where I've done role play in sales scenarios. I'm meeting this person, paste their LinkedIn account, and I'm going to try to sell them on data analysis. Why might they not want to work with me? And, then, okay, let's have a role play conversation, and you act as though you're that person. We'll chat back and forth, and we'll see if we can do that. If you just give it a role and you give it a position to be, and you can, close your eyes and you're in that role with that person, you can go pretty far.
It's fascinating. And I'm glad we had this chance to talk. And I hope the people who have listened to this conversation are starting to realize that AI is not going to replace us. We didn't even go into that, but I'm getting this idea that human element still needs to be there. AI doesn't have empathy at this point. It doesn't have the same kind of curiosity, could lead you to those questions, but you need a human behind it. And it's about sort of integrating this new technology and getting better and better at it to, as you said, be able to create better events where maybe people who have never been together before are coming together, or the specific people that you want to come to your event are coming. And the analytics to be able to say, hey, this is working. It, as you said a couple of times, it's more nuanced now. We can learn a little bit more. It's going beyond traditional ROI, which I think is great. And the big takeaway is there's nothing to be afraid of. We're all in this together. We're all learning together.
It's all play right now.
It's play.
Let's
have fun.
Yeah. What would you always want to know, and use it to educate yourself, increase the growth that you have. But there's really no negative to using it, because it's not making decisions for you. It's just giving you perspectives. It's an engine of perspectives, and you're still on the wheel. And now you've got a whole team behind you. Isn't that great? I mean, that should be the big takeaway from this, maybe, is that, did you know that you get an assistant today? Like that's good news.
That's great. Yeah. An assistant that will help you out, and one that's not going to bog you down, because once you say something, it'll actually do it. So Nick, thanks so much for joining me here today. I've learned more. I didn't know what I was going to learn today, but I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with AI. I mean, I've been using it, but this idea of being curious and having fun with it, I think, is a great takeaway. And having someone now, a new partner, a new person on your team is a great takeaway.
I love it.
So thank you. Thanks so much.
I like being in the empowerment business.
Well, hopefully people listening are feeling empowered now. So thanks a lot, Nick.
Appreciate it.
That's it for now. Thanks once again to eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. With the deepest catalog of professionals available, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, professional MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, and if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you love what you heard, drop us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.